Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Pure Elise.
I'm Joe, and this is the Esoterics Podcast.
How you doing today, Joe?
I'm good. I'm really good. How about you? You're just back from a really cool experience.
Yeah, I just got back from Mexico just a few days ago. And yeah, it was amazing. I was in the Yucatan state of Mexico. I stayed in Merida, the city of Merida, and then the city of Ixtamal. And they were just beautiful little towns, and we got to go see a lot of the Mayan temples,
Yeah.
a lot of history, and it was a wonderful trip.
When I went to Belize, the trip to see the Mayan temple was, I think, probably my favorite of the entire sort of experience because the trip there was also a journey. We left the little island of San Pedro, the island that Madonna sings about, La Isla
Oh,
Bonita.
uh-huh.
That's San Pedro.
Oh.
And so you had to take a boat across the ocean to get to the coast. Then you went through this winding river lake that took you deep into the jungle.
Oh,
Then you got
wow.
off. You got on this old, dusty, air conditionless school bus that was converted into a people bus, right?
Yes,
And
uh-huh.
then you drove down these old, these inner jungle roads with like cows and sugar canes, cows that were just stopped in the road and they're like, fuck you, I'm busy. And then went to this little village and then got on another boat and then went even deeper into the jungle. So the journey there was amazing. But then, sorry, I sort of hijacked your story here, but
No, no.
this is one of my favorite stories because once you like break that clearing, we came out into this huge lake, and then above the canopy of beyond the lake, you could
Mhm.
see the top of the Mayan temple. It was literally one of
Oh,
the most impactful and gorgeous moments of my life. So
that's
I had to
amazing.
share that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, we the last site we went to was Chichen Itza.
Chichen
And
Itza.
yeah, and so it was just spectacular to
Mm.
see the precision of that architecture and how
Oh,
old it
yes.
is. It was just amazing.
The aliens. The aliens.
So it's funny because I was talking with my mentor about that, and she was saying how like some not her, but some people get offended when when people say like, oh, like the Mayans use aliens,
Mhm.
or they were connecting with aliens to in order to come up with this technology. Because then we're like, oh, you're saying that they couldn't have come up with it on their own, like without aliens. and and it was just funny, like we were just kind of laughing about it. It's like, well, I mean, you can have it both ways. I mean,
Right. I don't think they couldn't come up with it on their own. I think how in the hell did they build them?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
rope and pulleys can only, I would think, assume can only go so far, but then I'm not an ancient engineer, so I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and it was interesting though seeing the different sites because we went to another one which was called Mayapan, which was built
Mayapan.
after Chichen Itza. And that's it's funny because the rock structures on that are a little rougher than they are at
Yeah.
Chichen Itza. So it was just, but it was beautiful just to see all the different sites and get to learn the history and go to the cenotes, which are like the natural like water pools that form.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and they it's the water seeps through the minerals and it forms these beautiful stalactites just throughout, like, in the caves. So, yeah, we went to several of those, and those were phenomenal.
Did you sense anything from the water, or did the water feel like different?
It was just the energy in there. The energy was
Yeah.
super even for it being water, it was super grounding.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very grounding.
I love those types of trips. They really just they feed your soul and they give you
Mhm.
whatever it is, you need in order to move on. So,
Absolutely.
typically those type of trips too, well, I won't say typically for everybody, but for a lot of people there's an up leveling after. So, yeah, like you'll probably experience a huge up leveling.
Yeah, it was really great. I can't recommend it enough, and I wanna go back. I wanna take my kids because I think they would appreciate it.
Yeah. What's your husband say? Was he like, I want to go, I want to
Yeah,
go?
he wants to go. Yeah, he was very jealous of the cenotes of the water. He's
Was he?
yeah, he got to go swimming in that. I'm like, yes.
Right? That's kind of what I was too. I was like, what? I wanted to go in that water. I love, love, love water, any water. But then I don't know, there's something about ancient water. It's kind of
Mhm.
like, have I found the fountain of youth? You know, I'm going to drink from it. And was
Right?
it salt water or fresh water?
It's all fresh water.
Fresh
Mhm.
water. Oh,
Yep.
so they probably back in the day, you know, in ancient times when it was a thriving civilization, maybe they drank from that. That was their water source,
It
maybe.
could have been. Yeah, it could have been. They definitely did use it though to bathe in because most ancient native civilizations formed their cities and everything around water sources,
Mhm.
um, because they were very clean people who bathed daily.
Ah, nice. Which is,
Yeah.
you know, a change from like the 1800 Europeans.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thought that an inch of whatever of oil and dirt on your skin protected you. That's so gross.
Oh, like, I can't, I mean, just between their lack of plumbing, like, and we're talking like 1400, like
Yeah.
Europe, you know, Paris, but they're between their lack of plumbing, their lack of just disgusting. I can imagine. I would
Yeah.
not want to re-experience the smell. I bet the
And,
smell was the
yeah,
worst.
they would just throw their
Yep.
excrement out the window. Like,
I know.
and then they had the audacity to come and see these native people and be like, "You guys aren't as advanced as we are." Like,
Savages. Yes. The savages hurt you. Native Americans are like, um,
you
we
stink.
poop in the woods.
We know how to take care of our poop. Yeah.
Right? Ugh,
So
yeah.
when the Spaniards first arrived, the native people followed them around with incense because they smelled so bad.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Listeners, this is just another example. Fiora is she just has this I won't it's not useless knowledge. It's like how the hell do you you
just
just know that. I love
just
that you just know that.
just random tidbits of information.
You can just bust out with fun fact.
Fun
Yeah.
facts. Fun facts with Fiora.
We're gonna add that as a segment. We're gonna retire the closing vibe and we'll just be fun facts with Fee.
All right. Okay. All right. So what announcements, upcoming events do we have?
Okay, first off, I just want to welcome everybody to October. So I love this month. I love it numerologically. I'm going to make up a word there because it is the number of one, the number of new beginnings, and it's followed by 11, a double one, which is double that number. It's the double energy of new beginnings. So October is about experiencing lots of opportunities and exciting, adventures or just learning about yourself. It's just a cool month. Add
Yes.
Halloween and
Yes.
like Freeform. Freeform, the channel
Hmm.
Freeform, it's like the month of they have all spooky movies and things, of course Hocus
Hmm.
Pocus is on every day. So I just love October.
Yeah. Well,
So
October's my birthday month, so
yes,
I I
it
love I
is.
love October.
Yeah, when's your birthday? It's coming up.
The October
Um
4th.
4th.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you and Cassie, I think, have the same birthday.
Oh.
My pal Cass, she'll listen here eventually. Hi, Cass, love you. Um, and if it's not the 4th, she's gonna like bitch me out. It's either the 2nd or the 4th. It's one of those two. Anyway, I love my Libras. All right, so I just want to welcome everybody to October. And yay, we're gonna have some fun this month with our podcast episodes.
Yes. Hmm.
My big announcement is that I have transferred my most popular classes to digital format, and you can now buy them anytime from my website. You just go to thewokakashik.com, go to the classes and events tab, and they're all listed. They're a link, and you click whatever class it is you want, and it'll take you to a sales page. And then that's where you enter your information, plug in your card, and then you'll be provided a download link, and you just click it and you can download that workshop, course, whatever. I'm currently in the process of transferring everything over digitally. It's a long process. I'm
Hmm.
not the greatest at technology, so it's going to take me a while, but eventually everything will be on there. And I just, you know I love in-person classes and live classes, but I want to do other things. So
Yeah, no, thank you for making that easy because yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was fun. It's really fun. But the other announcement that I have is that I'm working on an intuitive development course as well as an Akashic, a course to learn to open your own Akashic records. They'll
Ooh,
both be very affordable so that anybody can have access to them. I'll offer payment plans so you can make a couple payments on them, and they're not going to be that expensive. So look for that toward the end of fall and the beginning of winter.
wonderful.
Yeah. What about you? What do you got going on?
Oh, I just want to remind everyone. So we still have Journey the Wild coming up, our soul medicine retreat that is taking place November 5th through November 7th in Idlewild, California.
It's
This
going
is
to be
your
so fun.
Yes, this is your opportunity to join Joe and I for a weekend of connecting our soul and aligning with our higher self through breathwork, meditation, Reiki, Akashic journeys, sound baths, crystal jewelry making, so many things. All of this
Yes.
while exploring the plant medicines of Mesoamerica. So, just so you know, we have two spots open. All snacks, food, and beverages provided will support the weekend's activity. So, it's all vegetarian or vegan, healthy, delicious, satisfying stuff. And the space is a gorgeous home surrounded by nature, and it supports a feeling of peace, relaxation, and comfort. If you would like to join us, visit the Esoterics Podcast website. That's esotericspodcast.com. And your enrollment includes the accommodations, your meals and snacks, all of that. Just doesn't include travel expenses. But we do
Yeah.
have payment plans available. So
Yep.
take a look and let us know because we only have two more spots left. And once those are booked, that is it.
Gone. They're gone. Um, yeah. Yay. That sounds, that sounds really fun. If I wasn't going to be there, I'd be like, hey, I want to go.
Yeah, certainly.
What are we going to talk about today, Fiora?
All right. Today we are talking about the astrology and numerology of serial killers.
Oh, yay. Like I didn't know. Oh,
It's
yay.
it's our spooky season.
Spooky season.
Yay.
Okay, this is exciting. So,
Okay. All right. So before I get started,
oh,
I want to just do a little preface and a trigger warning. Okay.
oh yeah, okay,
So preface about this is just for fun.
right?
We're not going to call out we're not calling out specific sun signs or numerology numbers as people who can be serial killers. So don't be afraid if, you're married to a Capricorn, like they're not going to kill you probably. So, you know,
Maybe no. Mm-mm.
Hey, there's a lot more factors that go into this, but this is something that we thought would be a really interesting thing to take a look at because I don't know. I
Yeah.
think a lot of us have a morbid fascination with
Yes.
murder and all that. So,
Hmm.
anyways, and then trigger warning because there will be some mention of horrific crimes and murders and stuff that were perpetrated by some of these people. We're not going to get into full detail, but there's going to be some mention. So just know
Yeah.
maybe not. Not that really any of our episodes are because we don't watch our mouths, but maybe
Right.
not good to listen around kids.
Right. Get the kids out of here.
Yeah.
Even Rachel Maddow has that disclaimer. You might want to take the children from the room. And I'm like, if the kids are up watching Rachel Maddow at 9 o'clock, they need to go to bed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's a lot of like untrue facts, a lot of stuff that circulates around the internet about zodiac signs and who has the most number of serial killers. Like I know I heard that it was supposedly Gemini's,
Yeah.
um,
I've heard that too.
but it's actually not. So we're gonna break down a list. So just every zodiac sign can claim at least one serial killer. So for example, like Charles Manson was a Scorpio, although Charles Manson isn't technically a serial killer. Like he
Mm-mm.
was never charged with actual murder because he didn't
No.
he didn't actually get his hands dirty, but that's neither here
Well,
nor there.
and that's reflected in his numerology, which we'll get into.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And the Hillside Strangler, Angelo Anthony Bono Jr. was a Libra. As a fellow Libra, I am what?
Yeah.
um,
Right.
and Keith Hunter Jesperson, the Happy Face Killer, was an Aries. So those are just examples of how they're kind of, I would say, like for me, I thought like the Libra was like, oh, but we're so nice.
Right. But Libras are of love.
Yeah, but not so much for the Hillside Strangler. Um, so with statistical evidence, though, we can see that the majority of serial killers do fall under a mutable sign. Okay, so now just for anybody who's not too familiar with what mutable signs are. So, in the zodiac, the 12 signs are divided into three groups by something called the modality. So each sign is either a fixed sign, a mutable sign, or a cardinal sign. And so each of these modalities set a different set of personality traits that go along with it. So Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces are all known as mutable signs, and those are the groups that have the most amount of serial killers. Um, the mutable signs mean that their signs typically fall at the end of a season. So like Gemini falls at the end of spring, Virgo the end of summer, Sagittarius the end of fall, and Pisces the end of winter.
Oh, cool, cool. I never knew that.
Yeah. Immutable signs thrive on variety and versatility, and they need to convert an insatiable mental stimulation into real world experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you combine those traits with maybe like a troubled childhood or a psychotic break or some severe head trauma, maybe um, a killer with a prolific track record of disaster could very easily erupt out of one of those, like technically, innocent and curious souls. So,
Right.
so that's kind of how that all plays out. So the mutable signs are unique in the zodiac because all four signs are divided between two planets only, and those planets are Mercury and Jupiter. So
Hmm.
Jupiter is expansive. It is the traditional ruler for both Sagittarius and Pisces. And quick-minded Mercury is the ruler for Gemini and Virgo. Both planets signify how we roam and perceive the world. One consistent trait among serial killers is a need to roam, and it's usually matched with a unique and damaged perception of the world.
Okay, so isn't Mercury? We're in retrograde right now.
Mhm.
So what is the other keyword for Mercury when I think of Mercury? Um,
Communication.
communication. All right,
It's also
Jupiter.
it's the brain too. It's Mercury symbolizes how we think. Um, so you'll often see how a set of normal range of anxieties and thoughts and feelings can grotesquely become full-blown psychoses when they're symbolized in a serial killer's astrological chart.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
So here's a list of how it's like a list of over 300 serial killers, and then just breaking them down by sign, like who has the most. Okay, so I have
Which we're not going to go into 300, but
no.
she'll tell you. Yeah.
These are just like they're bundled up, so don't worry.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll be here all day.
No. Okay, so bad news for you, Joe. Number 1 is Capricorn,
Uh-oh.
uh with 55 serial killers. Yeah. Capricorns have a darker side to themselves that they hide from the world, and when their tempers come in, it takes center stage as they don't take mercy on others.
Yeah.
So these are like the extremes of each sign. So,
Right,
so
right.
okay. Number 2 is Leo, with 46 serial killers. Like the mythology behind the sign, Leo serial killers have engaged in sexual torture or cannibalism the most when they seek out punishment for having their delicate egos bruised.
Ah, yeah, I have a Leo moon too, so
Mm.
I'm
Dang.
the potential. I'm telling you, the potential has always been there.
Sagittarius, 43 serial killers. Known for their fiery tempers that flare up now and again, Sagittariuses are known to commit the most gruesome of crimes, like body dismemberment and necrophilia.
Sagittarius is savage.
Yeah. And tied for fourth place is
Oh,
Aries, Libra, Scorpio, and Aquarius, all having 42 serial killers each. Aries and Scorpios are known for crimes of passion due to the fact that they're both ruled by the planet Mars, whereas Libra can become extremely unhinged when they become imbalanced. And Aquarians like to engage and watch their victims being tortured.
gee, Aquarians sound sweet, don't they?
Uh, Okay. And then in fifth place is Gemini and Pisces are tied with 40 serial killers each. Gemini and Pisces are both mutable signs. So that also means that they can pick up the energy of others, which can make them feel kooky and seek out murder plots for revenge. And then Number six is Virgo with 39 serial killers. Honestly, I don't get mad at me, Virgos, but I thought Virgo would be higher up on the
Dude, I was just getting ready to say that. I thought Virgos would be like first on the list.
Okay, but this is why. Okay, because most of the murders committed by Virgos aren't violent acts. They are caused as a result of bank robbery or theft gone wrong. However, Virgos are way too methodical to get caught for a premeditated murder.
So we don't know for sure that you
Uh-huh.
Virgos aren't number one.
Yeah, right? It's just, you guys is really good at not getting caught.
That's the truth. That's the absolute truth, I guess. Yeah. All right. Oh,
Okay.
the next one, I'm surprised.
Number 7 is Cancer with 34 serial killers. Cancers engaged in the most sexual related serial killings and strangulations.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. They also engage in blackmail the most, which is a result of their emotional mindset and nature. Yeah. And then last on the list is Taurus with 22 serial killers. Tauruses don't have a thrill to kill. Based on data, they're usually the least likely to be serial killers. Maybe it's their big heart or innate laziness that stops them from their murderous tracks.
I don't feel like killing today. I'm busy. I'm very busy. All right.
Yeah.
Good on you, Taurus. I'm going to have lots of Taurus friends now.
All right. Okay. So some other aspects that are significant in a serial killer's chart. So first, let me just explain what aspects are, again, for somebody who's not super familiar with astrology. So aspects refer to the distance between planets or points in the horoscope. They are the strongest influence within a chart and are able to alter the characteristics of a planet within their sign. So for example, Mars is the planet known for action and war. Therefore, it's the main component of what we look at in a birth chart of a serial killer. People who have Neptunian influences in their Mars can act out the most.
Okay.
So this is due to their innate frustrations and delusions. Mars places on the south node of destiny in the natal chart can point to the native having an inability in expressing their emotions properly, and it can create violent temper tantrums that become deadly.
Wow. Mars was the planet that I was thinking of that was the influencer of war. Yeah.
The war.
It wasn't not Mercury.
Okay. Evocative Pluto can be volatile and excitable when triggered. Pluto has to win at all costs and make their points be known. On a bad day, the planet Pluto can be very controlling and create triangular situations that can lead to passionate meltdowns, resulting in violence.
Wow.
So look to Pluto's connection with Mercury and the notes of destiny in the natal birth chart to see any signature aspects of a serial killer.
I would love to hear about anybody that actually finds this, like if they find this in their spouse. Like, my spouse has a tendency.
Okay, so this last one, I think, is a pretty strong indicator. So, because it's also been noted that the frequency of the planets in the 12th house is also significantly higher for serial killers. So, again, it's explaining what that means. So, in astrology, your birth chart is divided into 12 sectors called houses, and each house represents different areas of your life. And the 12th house, so everything's determined by like the date and time you were born. So for example, your rising sign is indicated on the horizon when you were born, and it's always the cusp of your first house. The 12th house is sometimes called the house of the unseen. It rules intuition, mental health, spiritual health, mysticism, and endings. So
which is interesting.
Yeah. So having a lot of planets in this house indicates that those factors will play a significant role in your life.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Good info.
Yes. Okay. So now I want to get into some specific people. Okay. So first up, honestly, I hadn't heard of all these guys. Like, as much as I listen to, murder podcasts and stuff like that, and I've heard a lot of them. So first up is Albert Fish, who I I'm gonna look up the story, but he was born May 19th, 1870, and he was known as the Brooklyn Vampire. He killed what is assumed to be 100 victims. He was a chameleon, blending into his environment and staying hidden. He was mentally ill as a child, which continued into adulthood. He had very unusual desires and inflicted pain onto himself.
Mm,
So he was a Taurus, which
yep.
expressed to the extreme negative can be revealed in body dysmorphia and eating disorders.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So, Fish tortured the victims he killed and reportedly had auditory hallucinations that kept getting worse. He became obsessed with torturing and eating mostly young children. God.
Uh,
Ugh.
yeah, mm. It's
he,
like veal, I guess.
gross.
It's
He was found to be insane and was sentenced to death. As a Taurus, Albert Fish was
good.
motivated by sexual gratification. A Taurus is very sensual. Yeah, they are ruled by Venus, so that
Mm.
makes sense. And in tune with their sexual side, because Tauruses are also very possessive. Albert Fish is an example of possession to the extreme. He didn't want to get to share or let go of his victims, and that's why he consumed them.
Wow. All right. So Albert's a life path 4, which
Mhm,
is the teacher.
mhm.
Okay. But what I think contributes to, being a serial killer are his soul urge and his birthday. Those are ones, those are leaders. But then also, he has an expression 5, right? His soul, or I'm sorry, his expression 5 is how he expresses himself. That's the free spirit. So, between those two ones, which are all about being the leader, wanting to be the one to make the rules and move forward, and then that 5, who what that 5 that's all about freedom, he's just not that type of person who is going to follow anybody. He's going to be the one making the rules, or else he's not happy, he's unsatisfied. So,
Okay. All right. So next up is Jeffrey Dahmer. So let's
mm,
see. And he was a Gemini. So he was born May 21st, 1960. He is also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. Uh, he was a serial killer and sex offender. Between 1978 and 1991, he killed 17 men. I can't believe he went that long.
I know it's 17 men, or
Yeah.
men and boys. Yeah.
Yes.
17.
Yeah. He raped them, practiced necrophilia with the bodies, and dismembered them and ate them. Jesus. Dahmer seduced men from bars or hired male prostitutes, then he would drug, rape, and strangle them. He would continue to practice necrophilia with the bodies after their death. He was consumed by his desire to make his victims inferior. As a Gemini, Jeffrey Dahmer never wanted to be alone. Geminis are very affectionate and can adapt to certain circumstances, but taken to the extreme, their personality can turn a mental health problem. Eh,
I would say.
I mean, clearly. If
Mhm.
Dahmer couldn't find companionship easily, he hired men, thus solving his problem of finding victims. Um,
Right.
yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the problems with sex workers is that they can become very easy targets for
Right.
sick, demented people.
Right.
Um, so also because Geminis can be restless, it explains why Dahmer moved on from victim to victim pretty quickly. He
Yeah.
is thought to have had antisocial personality disorder, which would be the opposite of a free-spirited Gemini. Again, negative to the extreme.
Right. He later admitted to eating the thighs, the hearts, and the organs of his victims. So he was very specific about what he ate. And then it's funny because he also, while he was in prison, he became a born again Christian. And it's like, all right, well, there you go, full circle, right? Listen, not slamming born again Christians. I'm just saying. So Dahmer, there was a quote. He was
Oh.
quoted as saying about murder,
Mhm.
it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure and not a living, breathing human being, it seems to make it easier to do things you shouldn't do. So he knew it was wrong, right?
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times this is consistent when you look back at, I'm going to I have some quotes from a couple of them, but it's like, they knew what they were doing.
Mhm.
All right. Dahmer the Gemini. He was a life path 6. Expression 11-2, which is a master number. Master
Wow.
numbers have a lot more challenges in their life, but they can also experience greater triumphs. He was a soul urge 9, a personality 11-2, double 11-2. I don't come across many people that have double 11-2s in their charts.
I
So that's
mean,
always
he
interesting.
did become famous. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
infamous.
And and then he has a birthday 3. So one of the things that the 6 is the nurturer, opposite.
Mhm.
Um, the 9 is nines can be a little bit I don't know, polarizing, I guess, but his soul urge is a humanitarian. He wants to help the greater whole,
Weird.
opposite. 11-2, that's the inspired healer. Healers,
Mhm.
opposite.
Opposite. Yeah.
Yep. And the 2 is the most harmonious and balanced and loving number of in the numerology,
Uh-huh.
opposite.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
the 3. Now the 3 is really the one that sort of makes me go, okay, well, maybe he capitalized on those threes because threes are very sensitive. They're just very sensitive, artistic people. But threes can have a jealous streak. They can cause all sorts of conflicts within other people.
Mhm.
And they have really, really, really narcissistic tendencies. So, then they need to be the center of attention. So, just coupled with probably his childhood, whatever his trauma or
Mhm.
damage.
Sure.
He's like, I think Dahmer is one of the most, um, I'm not going to say favorite because I don't have a favorite, but I look at I look at serial killers and I look at their crimes and I'm like, based on the order of how fucked up
Oh,
they
yeah,
are,
yeah, he's probably definitely one of the
Dahmer's
most
up there.
yeah, he's right up there for me with, John Wayne Gacy. I think those are the
Yeah,
especially because for me, Gacy, it's the children thing that I'm just like, "What the
I
fuck is wrong
know.
with you?"
How what is it about children? I mean,
Oh,
you know, they're just little babies and kids. They just need to be loved.
yeah, that's just it's just awful. Okay. Alright, so next up is Ed Gein.
Ooh,
He was
he's one of my quote unquote favorites too.
yeah, he is gross. He was a Virgo. His birthday was August 27th, 1906, and he is known for skinning human corpses and
Mhm.
making furniture out of them. Wow.
Lampshades.
He wow. He was found to be guilty by reason of insanity and lived in a state facility for the rest of his life. So the psycho character Norman Bates is based on Gein and his abhorrent crimes. But isn't that also
Yes. Yep.
Buffalo Bill? Right?
Buffalo Bill as is, because Ed Gein would also he created like a suit of all of the women's parts that he would put on. So he had
Gross.
breasts and he had a vagina and all of those
Wow.
things. Yeah, he was again, we'll call it the FU level, the fucked up level. The
Super
dude's
demented.
like a 10.
Yeah. Okay. So Virgos love paying attention to detail. So, because of how Ed Gein used his victim's body, it shows how he was meticulous in his life as a Virgo. Also, a Virgo is very critical of everything they do. So, Ed would also be his own biggest critic.
Yeah, and his
Interesting.
mom was a piece of work. So
So that's the Norman Bates thing, right?
yep,
Because
yep,
that was his whole weird ass relationship with his dead mother.
yep, yep.
Do
All
you?
right, so yeah, Ed, quote, Ed was quoted as
Hmm.
saying, "When I see a pretty girl walking down the street, I think of two things. One part wants to be real nice and sweet, and the other part wonders what her head would look like on a stick." I, I,
Fuck.
I can't imagine having those thoughts running through your head. Although sometimes there have been times.
It's just it's I mean there's definitely just screws loose in there, you
Yeah,
know? And these aren't
yeah,
normal people
no,
and by any stretch of the imagination.
no. All right. So again, we have another life path 6. The 6 is the nurturer. The 6 wants to take care of people. Um, with an expression 9, 6s are all about taking care of people one on one. Nines are all about the humanitarian, taking care of the world or taking care of things at bigger levels. He is a soul urge 11-2. Again, we have another master number, inspired healer.
Mm.
um, a personality 3. So we have that 3 again in there, the communicator, and then the birthday 9. One of the things that I see is that there's a lot of 9s
In these charts.
in these charts, and the 9 again is the humanitarian. But here's the cool thing, well, not the cool thing, but here's the volatile part of the 9.
Hmm.
Nines can be very, very, very passionate to the point of where they can be polarizing, but they're very charismatic and persuasive.
Mm,
Nines will change your mind if given the right time. But man, nines can also be extremely vindictive and unforgiving to the point of where they will crush you for no
yeah,
reason other
yeah,
than that's what you get. So
yeah.
there are a lot of nines in all of these
All of these
charts.
people on these charts. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's interesting. Okay, so next up, I have Andre Chikatilo. He was
Chica,
a Libra. Libra. Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
It doesn't
Chikatilo.
matter. He's a
Sounds
fucking
good.
murderer. I don't
Right.
care.
Fuck you, Andre.
His birthday was October. Also, you're giving Libras a bad name. I really don't like you. Uh, his birthday was October 16th, 1936, known as the Butcher of Rostov, or the Red Ripper, also the Rostov Ripper. He killed and mutilated 52 to 56 people. He targeted children and at risk teens and was
Mm.
sexually satisfied when he killed his victims. He
Aw.
was profiled as a necro sadist, or a
Oh.
person who reaches sexual gratification from his victims while they are suffering and when they die.
Aw.
So his astro sign to the extreme, a Libra hates being alone. So it makes sense that he wanted his victims to be part of himself so that they would never leave him.
Yeah.
He was found guilty and was sentenced to be executed.
Well, Mr. Chictillo, or whatever the hell his name is, he is, again, there's that 9. He's a life path 9. With an expression 4. The 4 is the teacher. He had a soul urge of 4 as well. So he really had a strong desire to show people, help people, teach people, but also to create some stability.
Hmm.
Double 9 personality. So when you have a life path 9 and a personality 9, that's what you see is what you get. People knew who he was. They weren't like, well, behind scenes, Andre is, this, but then other
Mm.
times he says, nope, Andre was, or yeah, Andre was always the same person.
Hmm.
Okay, but he also had a birthday 7. Now, listen, of all of the numbers, I would think that 7s have the biggest tendency to be serial killers, but 7s don't show up in the charts very often, which
Mm.
is interesting. There's a few, but not as consistently as the 9.
Yeah.
Now, remember, the 9s can be vindictive and just
Uh,
but then you take that 7 because 7s are they can compartmentalize, they're unemotional, they don't really like people,
oh.
they prefer to be the only one, so he killed, in my assumption, he killed heartlessly and without remorse, and it probably never even raised his pulse at all.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a quote for him.
Okay. All right. Well, next up, I'm sure you probably have a quote on this guy, this fucking psycho. Um, Charles Manson,
I
who,
do have a quote for that
yeah,
fucker.
of course, because he loved talking. He loved attention. Yeah, he was
Yep.
all about him. Okay. He
Mhm.
was a Scorpio, and his birthday was November 12th, 1934. He was the cult leader of the family, and it consisted of approximately 100 followers. They used drugs such as LSD and magic mushrooms. He was looked up to as a prophetic figure and orchestrated the murders of a bunch of people that his followers actually committed. So he wasn't the actual murderer, but he was the one pulling the strings. Um, so, as a Scorpio, Charles Manson had leadership in his DNA. He easily slipped into the role of a cult leader. He also
Yeah.
easily manipulated his followers, which is a common characteristic of Scorpios, which is the manipulation. Because he was so dedicated to his cause, he was able to influence his followers to do what he desired, such as committing murders on his own behalf.
This guy is something else. Okay, so Manson, let me just, if you just Google Charles Manson's quotes. I mean, there's so
Right.
many of them, and he's like, again, level 10. The shit that comes out of his mouth, it's like,
Yeah. You're just
what?
like,
What? He does. He likes to hear himself talk. All right.
mm-hmm.
So the one that got me was he said, "Remorse for what? You people have done everything in the world to me. Doesn't that give me equal right?"
Oh God. Oh God.
Right.
Wow.
Classic narcissist.
You
So,
know who he reminds me of? And maybe it's the narcissist, but he reminds me of Hitler.
well, yeah, he might be reincarnated as Hitler. We
Well,
don't
he
know.
was born in 1934, so they were alive at the same time.
They were okay.
Yeah. Um,
Again, useless information. How do you even know that?
well, Charles Manson was born in 1934. I'm sure Hitler was probably well
Oh,
into his 30s by that time.
well,
So, yeah.
duh, right?
Yeah. But his birthday was April 20th though. Don't ask me why I know that.
How, I was just gonna like. How do you know?
Because it's 420. Honestly, that's why. Like why of course Hitler like why was Hitler born on 420 but he was.
And he
Um
wasn't very chill either.
no, he wasn't chill at all. But it just reminds me of like the whole idea of like being able to lead people and to influence people and manipulate people, and a lot of it had to do with his own failures early on. Like Charles Manson was basically a failed folk singer. His
It's true.
yeah,
Mhm.
and Hitler was a failed artist, like, and then
Oh,
yeah, and he then that's why he went and stole all that art around Europe and wherever he could during the war, because he was pissed that he never
right.
made it to be an artist. So it's just funny how there's some
Failure
similarities.
is huge. Failure is, when we hate ourselves or, we internalize that and then turn
Mm-hmm.
around and externalize it.
Mm-hmm.
So Manson, Scorpio Manson was a life path for the teacher, which makes sense, right? Because he was
Mm,
showing others, teaching others, leading others, that sort of thing.
yeah.
But what's interesting about him is that he has two eights in his chart, and eights are the powerhouse. So basically, people that with an eight in their chart, anytime if they're out of alignment,
Mm-hmm.
they get power hungry and then they use it to oppress people.
Mm,
And then, of course, dude has all sorts of narcissistic tendencies in him. That's evident by his birthday number 3. And then there's that old 9 in there, too. So Manson is a life path 4, an expression 8, a soul urge 9,
uh,
a personality 8, so double 8, so he's double the dick,
mhm.
and then birthday 3. And remember that threes, when threes are out of alignment, they're quite the narcissists and all that stuff. So his or his core numerology chart
Mhm.
actually describes him to a T in all of those lower tendencies. So yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay.
Good old Charlie.
I'm glad he's dead. Okay. All right. All right. Next up is Ted Bundy.
Ooh.
Ted Bundy was a Sagittarius. His birthday was November 24th, 1946. He confessed to 30 murders, but the actual amount is unknown because he's definitely suspected of having done a lot more than that. He preyed on vulnerable and attractive young women. He raped and murdered these women by strangling or bludgeoning them and then mutilated their bodies after death. He would visit the corpses at their grave site for his own sexual gratification, and he was sentenced to death by electric chair. So, with his astro chart, his Mars, which is volatile, pairs up with a rootless, philosophical Sagittarius moon
Mm.
with a conjunction that opposes his aloof Uranus and Gemini. So, this is a fitting symbol for someone who is known as a murderous, quote unquote, stranger. So, his Mercury and his Jupiter were both in obsessive and passionate Scorpio, another appropriate symbol for someone who would could not stop thinking about his dark sexual needs and traveled far and often to fulfill them. He was driven by his deep desire to do anything to achieve what he wanted, which is a characteristic of a Sagittarius
And a narcissist.
and a narcissist. His curiosity about after death, which is sparked by being a Sagittarius, gave him immense sexual gratification at just the thought of a body decaying.
Oh my god, what that's the least pleasant part, I would think.
Well, you're not a serial killer.
Well, that's
So,
true.
all right. What do you have a quote for Ted Bundy?
Yeah, dude, or this guy. Okay. I've got a couple from him because it paints this beautiful picture. Um, we serial killers are your sons. We are your husbands. We are everywhere.
Ugh.
Then he says, what's one less person on the face of the earth anyway? So he doesn't give a shit, right? But then
Right.
this is the most chilling one. He says, when you feel the last bit of breath leaving their body, you're looking into their eyes. So right there, right? It's he enjoyed it. He was in it. He
Yeah.
reveled in that. Um all right, so when it comes to Mr. Bundy, he was a life path 1, the leader. Expression 9, get this. Expression 9, soul urge 9, and personality 9.
There's a lot of nines.
I mean, those nines, you gotta watch out for
But
the
okay,
Capricorn's nines.
but isn't nine also endings?
9 is all, yes, in a when you're looking at it in terms of events, it's about,
Ah.
transformations, endings, to
Mm.
make way for new. So, it's very possible that this absolutely could have been, I mean, let's take these crazy, psychos and look at it from a soul contract point of view.
Ah.
Um, wrapping up, experiencing being this prolific serial killer, and experiencing all this horrific, um, I guess, circumstances
Uh-huh.
that when he passes over, maybe all that's behind him. And now he's ready to be an actual light worker because a 9 is the ultimate humanitarian, the ultimate light worker,
Weird.
the doer of good. What's also interesting about Bundy is that his birthday number is a 6. So he's
Uh-huh.
got that double. The sixes are all about helping people at a personal level, and the nines are about helping people at a global level.
Uh-huh.
But sixes are uber empaths. So that fucker, when he was staring into their eyes and feeling the life drain out of them and watching the light go out of their eyes, he was also feeling and experiencing it. So that's what he is getting off,
Mm.
is that ability to tap into that. So
Weird.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's almost like they're like inverted nines. You know,
Right.
like when we read the tarot, right? And you get the reverse or whatever. It's
Hmm.
like they're a
Hmm.
reverse nine.
Yeah, well, much like astrology, in numerology, you have the positive aspects of the
Mm-hmm.
number, and then you have the lower or more challenging aspects of it. And like I said, with the 9, they can be vindictive and unforgiving. And again, he's a perfect 9, charismatic. Boy, he
Mm.
was a charmer. He was
Yep.
attractive. I mean, he just used that in order to victimize. And
Yep.
then, of course, he was the ultimate narcissist too. So
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah,
he,
because he represented himself in court because he was one of those who just thought that like, oh, I'm so smart, I'm smarter than all of you, and there's no
right.
way. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's actually interesting because that's a trait of a nines. Nines think that they're I don't want to say
Superior.
that nines think they're better than everybody, but nines have a lot of condescension and disdain
Mm.
for people when they're out of alignment.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does
Okay.
make sense.
And last is John Wayne Gacy. He was a Pisces. His birthday was March 17th, 1942. He was known as the killer clown. He targeted young men and boys. He raped and killed them and then buried them underneath his house in a crawl space. He murdered 33 people and was convicted to be executed by lethal injection. Gacy had his Mercury in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter, and his Jupiter in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. His deadly planetary switcheroo combined with his own repressed murderous lust found young hitchhikers and hustlers, all mercurial archetypes, as ideal victims. The same love of versatility allowed him to slip into a number of occupations like a show salesperson, a fast food restaurant owner, a community volunteer, an amateur clown. And then even his last one, where he was a well-paid painter on death row, even though he was actually full of shit because he had other people paint the paintings for him and he just signed them.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I'd heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. Pisces are very artistic. So, as a clown, John Wayne was able to exploit his creativity to entice children and young men into trusting him. Also, Pisces likes to help others. So, Gacy may have felt like he was saving these boys and young men from their lives. Because Pisces is very playful, artistic, and caring, it is easy to put trust in someone that appears to be trustworthy.
Okay, so first off, the smell wasn't the smell be these people being buried under his house, all of these people, like the smell,
Oh,
no
yeah.
embalming,
Yeah.
so his the words of wisdom from this douchebag, he says, convicted of anything more serious than running a cemetery without a license.
What the fuck? What the
Right.
fuck?
Like, dude, you had people. All right, so let's look at his how unhinged he is. So, life path 9,
Oh,
shocker.
another Jesus Christ.
Good, wait, it gets better. Expression 7. Now, remember, 7 is what I said. If I was going to pick a potential serial
Mm,
killer, it would be a life path 7,
mhm,
or somebody that had a 7 in their chart. Life path 9, expression 7, soul urge 9. So he's a double 9. Again, there's that 3, personality 3, right? And
mm.
then the birthday 8. And so he's got all of them in there. Those are all numbers that have, when they express themselves at their lower tendencies,
Yeah.
they are vicious, vindictive people. So, it's all there.
Yep.
Very, very, very interesting how these life charts, because I would like to meet somebody, who is just a stellar humanitarian, um, with this chart, and see how a balanced life path 9, expression 7, soul urge 9, personality 3, birthday 8 actually manifests their life.
We should pull a few people and see because these are obviously all people in their negative aspects, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So to see someone with a similar numerology chart, but in the on the other end of the spectrum, in the positive. Um,
I mean, there are a few things. We could take the same birthday and do a reverse Google search
oh,
for celebrities with the same birthday. But
sure,
the thing that would influence it is their name, because numerology also takes the name. So
that's right.
if the name can be the vowels and the consonants, and someone's name can also influence it. But that would be fun to actually see if we can actually do that.
Mm-hmm. I always thought
Uh,
it was interesting and weird how most not all of these, but a lot of these had three names. Um,
right, right.
yeah.
So there's a couple that I have that you didn't touch on.
Yes.
So serial killer Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer.
Oh.
And
Mm-hmm.
it stood for bind, torture, and kill, which isn't that sweet.
That's gross.
Rader is, or yeah, he is. I don't know if he's alive, but he is a Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
And his quote is, "I don't think it was actually the person that I was after. I think it was the dream." I know that's not really nice to say about a person, but they were basically an object. They
Mm.
were just an object. That's all they were. I had more satisfaction building up to it and afterwards than I did the actual killing of the person. So, these lives were disposable. So he dubbed himself the BTK killer. In a 1978 letter, he wrote of killing. It's a terrible nightmare, but you see, I don't lose any sleep over it. So again, completely devoid of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Rader usually targeted women, though he did kill or attempt to kill men and children on a few occasions. The victims were typically tied up, using items from their house, right? So he wasn't driving around with all the stuff in his car.
Mm-hmm.
And they were killed by strangulation, either manual or with some sort of ligature, or suffocation or something, right? So he snuffed them out. Now, the interesting part about him is that he was a devoted family and company man by day, right? Like, he was a pillar of society. He had, a wife and a daughter, but
Just like
i-
Gacy. Gacy was like that too.
yeah,
You would think they were Geminis, the way they live double lives like
you really would. Those Pisces, we got to watch out for those fuckers.
that.
But he did this between 74 and 91. So he got away
Oh,
with
so
it
there's
for a
another one.
long
Yeah. That was
time. Yep.
like
Yeah.
Dahmer. Wow.
So this is how he got snagged, though. And again, when we talk about, go over his numerology in a minute, he had a penchant for leaving clues. Right? Or a narcissist, you can't
Uh-huh.
catch
You
me
can't catch
anyway.
me.
Bitch,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? That's how he got caught. And he that's what led to his arrest and imprisonment. So
Mm-hmm.
um Raider is a life path 4,
Okay.
expression 5, right? See, that's why they don't want to mess with us fives. Um, he's a double 5 too. He's got a personality 5.
Oh,
But guess what else he's a double in?
9.
Yep, soul urge
Okay.
9 and a
Oh
birthday
my
9.
God.
Those nines, Capricorn, life path 9. I'm staying away from them. I'm not even going to engage these people. All right, and so anyway, BTK. That's Dennis Rader.
Okay.
He's, I believe, he's in prison, dead, but giant douchebag.
I think he
Douchebag scale
recently
10.
died. I think he just recently died. I
Okay, that's
believe.
good.
Yeah.
Go into the light. All right, and then the last one, we're going to talk about the ladies' equal opportunity. Eileen Warnos. She is or was a Pisces. She was executed by lethal injection in 2002. I want to point out that her sanity was in question
Yeah.
because really the way that she thought, it's like, well,
Yeah.
I think she might be crazy.
And
Um,
and the shit that happened to her, I mean, I'm not excusing
yeah,
her actions, but
no,
I mean, everybody has a fucking breaking point.
yeah,
That was
right.
extreme.
Right. And so what happened to her? Well, she was a Pisces, right? So add her, one more
Another
Pisces.
another mutable sign. Uh-huh.
The interesting thing about her is that she has no nines in her chart. She's a life path 7, which
Uh,
sevens are the psychics, the wise, the wisdom. They're into
uh,
spirituality, but they're also able to compartmentalize.
mm,
So she killed without remorse.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
She was an expression 4, a soul urge 6, double 7, personality 7. So
Okay.
again, when your personality number is the same as your life path person or your life path number, what you see is what you get.
Uh,
So hardcore 7. And I have a 7 in my chart, and I know that I have to temper my 7 all the time. That sort of stereotypical coldness of the Capricorn is actually my 7.
okay. Okay.
Um, and then her birthday was 11 2. Or I'm sorry, she was an inspired healer. Her birthday number was an 11 2. She was a sex worker, and
Mhm.
she murdered 7 men in Florida in 89 and 90. So it was just a short period of time.
Yeah.
But what she did, she was like, fuck you. And she just point blank shot him, point blank range.
Yeah.
Um, she was sexually abused. She was thrown out of her home as a teen. And we are not obviously saying, well,
No,
but
but
these are the things that led up to
yeah.
her sort of being like you said, her breaking point.
Yeah.
She was involved in previous incidents with the law, because she made that living as a sex worker
Yeah.
on the highways, which is interesting. And so the first time she killed a man who picked her up, and then went on to kill at least 5 other men, and was eventually caught, convicted, and placed on death row. I didn't know Florida had the death penalty. I thought that was just Texas, but I guess
Oh.
I guess they did because she was executed by lethal injection. So this was her quote. I robbed them and killed them as cold as ice, and I would do it again. And I know I would kill another person because I've hated humans for a long time.
Ooh.
So that tells me she hated herself.
Yeah.
Anytime. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. So
Have you seen the
equal
movie?
opportunity. I don't know that I have seen the movie, but yes, with Charlize
Yeah.
Theron.
Yes.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes, yes, I have, because her transformation was like it blew everybody away. Like,
It
what?
was. I mean, it was
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, BTK is unfortunately still alive, by the
he
way.
is.
I looked
All
it up.
right, all
Unfortunately.
right. Well, hopefully someone will change that
I mean,
one day.
he's like
I'm not gonna wish that on anybody. Is he
79,
really 79?
76. He's 76.
He's bound to, you know.
It's gonna happen. I mean, he's got life in prison. He's not going anywhere.
So I guess to wrap this all up, I mean, One of the things that we've learned is that though you gotta watch out for those nines in your chart. You got to watch out for
The
Capricorns,
mutable signs.
the
Uh,
mutable signs.
oh,
Yep. What is
Capricorn's not one of the mutable signs, but Capricorn for some reason there's a lot.
yeah? What else? Leos and what did you say? Like what were the
uh,
top three?
oh, the top.
Capricorns.
It was Capricorn was the first one, and then Leo and Sagittarius.
Yeah, watch out for those. And then if they have nines in there, steer clear. Yeah, I'm a Capricorn and I have a nine in mine, so I have a
Don't
nine
mess with Joe.
expression number.
Don't mess with Joe.
So when I was early on in my spirituality, one of the things that one of my mentors taught me was to have an avatar, right? And the avatar actually helps you do shadow work, so
Okay.
that when you want to express those lower tendencies,
Uh-huh.
you just visualize your avatar doing it. And if you have the opportunity to actually do this, it lessens, right? Because remember, the reticular activation system doesn't know the difference between real life and your thoughts or your visualization. So it all works together beautifully.
Okay.
Her name is Nyx. And Nyx is just like a badass. If you ever watch the show Lucifer,
Uh-huh.
um, um, Lucifer's has a sidekick, and she was that beautiful, like mixed black woman. She wore leather, just gorgeous, right? And she was a badass demon. Anyway, so that's who my avatar was. And so she was, for the first year when I started to implement the use of an avatar, she was all just would randomly walk up to people and stab them. So it indulged my serial killer fantasies
Oh
and the
my god.
satisfaction that came from it without actually doing it. And I was just like, visualize stabbing you in the face.
Oh no.
Yeah, people are like, I don't know about Joe. We're gonna
um
watch
we're,
out for her.
we're just gonna not cross her. Not piss her off.
What's your takeaway?
Um that my suspicions about some Geminis have been I have a lot of Gemini friends, but I've also met some really like disheveled Geminis, I guess I
Yeah.
should say. I'm like, yeah, nope. It's just so interesting though. It's so interesting. I've had this. I brought this idea to you a while ago, because I was like, I just want to know. Like, I just want to know if there's like some correlation, and it was just so cool to just kind of see like, oh, it's just the extremes of the personalities that we that we looked at. It's just very interesting.
It is cool. It's cool. Actually, you brought that up before we had our own podcast, right? Because I
Hmm.
was doing guest contributing on the Glow Girl podcast,
Hmm.
and yeah, and so it's interesting that it actually comes to fruition when you and I do it. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, super fun. Yeah.
This is how it
So
was meant to be.
yeah, yeah. This was a really fun episode to um, put together and then share with everybody. So
And launch our spooky season.
launching the spooky season. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Do you have anything for the closing vibe?
I do not.
Yeah, I don't either. I really don't. Everybody, you can find us on all the socials under Esoterics Podcast. Be sure to join our Facebook community, the Esoterics Group, where you'll hear firsthand about our services and events and courses, and as well as get intuitive development tips and card pulls and free meditations when I start doing those again, and just lots going on in there.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. It would mean the world to us, and it ensures the success of this podcast. And if you haven't done so already, please leave a review on Apple Podcast. We would love to feature your reviews in our marketing.
Yes, you could be featured. Thank you for sharing space with us today. Stay mystical, magical, and ready to do it again next week when we will be talking about
Ghost and earthbound spirits. What are they, and why haven't they gone into the light?
right. Go into the light, ghost. Why? Why are you sticking around? We're going to talk about all that. So,
Awesome.
all right, guys.
Thanks
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.